A single market and customs union win-win solution for the UK could be much closer than we think. My name's Mike Cashman. If you find these ideas interesting, please subscribe to the channel, ask me to speak at your meetings. I wrote these books of satirical parody. Please buy the books and the music. So, a single market and customs union solution for the UK could be much closer than we think. Now, this would solve a lot of the problems, a lot of the Brexit failures, and I'll talk more about that. But for a lot of people, there are a number of objections to this. And I will list those that I've heard most often, and then tell you why I think none of those will prevent this happening within a small number of years. Objection number one, Boris Johnson wouldn't do it. Objection number two, even without Boris Johnson, the Tories wouldn't do it. Objection number three, the EU wouldn't have us back. Objection number four, what about freedom of movement? Objection number five, the public wouldn't support it. Objection number six, will it even be a single UK by then? Objection number seven, Labour wouldn't support it. OK, let's take them one by one. Objection number one, Boris Johnson wouldn't do it. Actually, I believe that. He's off in Marbella at the moment, considering his future perhaps. We've just had a Conservative Party conference. I would estimate that, among others, Raab, Truss, Gove, Patel, Sunak all want to be Prime Minister. I would be amazed if the corridors hadn't been full of conversations about, would you be inclined to support me in the event of a vacancy? Tories, more often than not, change their leader between general elections, even those that they've won. I'm talking about post-war. So Johnson may not be here forever, whether he chooses to go or is chucked out. But does that help? Number two, the Tories wouldn't do it even without Johnson, because the Tories would do exactly what Boris Johnson has done and follow his beliefs. That never happens. People don't go into politics to be a Me Too Prime Minister. The new person wants to make a mark, do things differently, to signal that within the first 3 months, and all bets are potentially off. The previous incumbent is tied to their policies. Why couldn't Margaret Thatcher change the poll tax? But a new person has more freedom of movement. Let's look at the circumstances of the time. Objection three, the EU wouldn't want us back. I can well believe that the EU would not want the UK back as a member of the EU in the short term, even if we're talking about a different government, whether a different Tory government or a different Labour government. But the single market and the customs union is a different proposition. People have been very busy telling us, in the single market and the customs union, you're a rule taker, you don't set the rules. From the EU's point of view, the UK in the single market and the customs union might well be less troublesome than the negotiating with the UK over a bespoke deal that the UK doesn't feel very inclined to follow. Within the single market and the customs union, the rules are defined, and that solves an awful lot of other problems, including the Northern Irish border. So I think there's potential positives for the EU in having the UK controlled by the rules of the single market and the customs union. And from the Brexiters' point of view, I've heard many people say, if it was just an economic arrangement, I'd be happy with it. It's the political organisations that I don't like. So what about freedom of movement? Didn't 17 million people vote to end freedom of movement? Well, maybe they did, but actually they didn't all vote for that reason. And we haven't got 17 million people opposed to Brexit now. Many people, a majority of people, think Brexit was a bad idea. The way out of it is another matter, but that doesn't mean that they all believe that everything that Brexit brought us was good. And let's just be practical now. This is not 2016. Now, at that time, presumably, a fair number of people did believe that it was too easy for EU citizens to come here, that there were too many EU citizens here. There are now far fewer. We do know more accurately how many there are, but many have gone home, and we've overcooked it, in fact, if we were actually trying to look at the needs of the UK. So we've ended up with shortages in many areas of industry that had not been planned for, that have, where there weren't alternative arrangements put in place. Reversing freedom of movement will not bring back everybody who left in 2016 or since 2016. Many have made alternative future arrangements. Some of them would, and that would help to solve the shortages in some of those areas. I don't know how many. Boris Johnson has talked about pulling the lever of uncontrolled immigration, but it's not a lever, it's not a tap, it's not something where you can just decide how many you're going to have. It's unlikely in practice that freedom of movement, if restored, would result in anything like the number of EU citizens in this country that there were in 2016. So what about the state of the UK at that point? Will it still be the United Kingdom as is? Well, at some stage it might not be. But if we were talking about a rapid return to the single market and customs union for the UK, then that is one argument. I'm not going to get into the whole question of whether Scottish independence, Irish reunification, Welsh independence, of the pros and cons of that. But if single market and customs union membership was a realistic prospect, then that's something that would be considered by any of those nations considering separating from the UK. Next objection, the public wouldn't support it. Well, I'm not sure about that. The public thinks Brexit was a mistake. The majority of the public thinks that Brexit was a mistake and hasn't been good for the UK. Doesn't necessarily know the way out of that. So if there was a way out provided, which, as per what I've gone through in this video, which other objections don't apply to, then perhaps there would be public support for it. And by the way, there are possibilities to control immigration to a greater extent than Britain did leading up to 2016. Last objection, Labour wouldn't support it. Well, Labour, your job is not just to be a follower of public support and work out that finally, when the public are totally in favour of rejoining at least the single market and the customs union, that you then put that on your manifesto. We're looking for some leadership here. Now, maybe Keir Starmer is playing the long game and at the moment saying, let's make Brexit work, and in time we'll come to a position of saying, well, it's very difficult to make Brexit work, but hey, here's a way to make Brexit work, which is rejoin the single market and the customs union. So, going through all those objections, when you stack them all together, it seems like quite a mountain to climb. But actually, if you take them one by one, and if you consider the practicalities of the real situation and the motivations and what people want and what will make things better for the UK, the devolved nations, the EU, and even for pro-Brexit and anti-Brexit people, because for pro-Brexit people, Brexit currently has failed. Now, it's like Titanic. It's holed below the waterline. It hasn't sunk yet, but it can't continue. It's failed on the economy, on cooperation, on staffing, on energy, in all sorts of areas. If you ask a Brexit supporter for a benefit of Brexit, the fact that they so often come out with the UK vaccine programme is telling, because the fact-checking has established that the vaccine programme is not a benefit of Brexit. Everything the UK did in the vaccine programme could have been done if the UK was a member of the EU, and we were subject to the transition period rules as the vaccine programme was developed. So Brexit has failed in all sorts of ways, and if you were totally in support of Brexit and you thought it was the best thing for the UK and you wished there had been a plan for it, well, I'm sorry, but there wasn't. One opportunity for you to at least hold some ground of the UK outside the EU is a holding position of single market and customs union, and then the situation can be stabilised. For those who are pro-EU membership, then obviously there are advantages to closer cooperation with Europe, including the practical advantages of easing trade, travel, movement, Northern Ireland border and everything else. So there you are. It's a potential win-win, but we need to see this being actively campaigned for. We've heard that the next election a general election might be winter of 2023. It's time to be starting to think about the positions that Labour and the Lib Dems and other parties will take, and to look for some unity on this win-win of single market and customs union. So, as I say, if that's been interesting, please subscribe to the channel, invite me to speak on the subject if you want, and do, of course, put your comments in on the video. Thank you.